Hey, you see that guy there? Right there? A little closer. That's Eren Mirza. I'm also Eren Mirza. And me are going to be teaching you about polymers in sports and sports clothings. Hey, my name's Eren Mirza, and today we're going to be looking at the polymers in sports and sports clothings. We're going to be looking at 3 sports in details: pool, golf, and some hardcore parkour. Now before we get started, let's go get some food. Alex, you need to...
Oh shit.
We're going to be doing some pretty hard sports today, so we're going to eat properly. Hardcore sports in action.
It's always good that the kids are doing work nowadays.
Love McDonald's. So what are polymers? Well, by definition, it's a combination of 2 words. Poly, meaning many, and meros, meaning parts, many parts. Polymers are large molecules made up by smaller molecules named monomers. These join together in a repeated fashion. Now there's 2 types of polymers, natural and synthetic. Now I never did A-level biology, so we're mainly going to be focusing on synthetic polymers. The simplest polymer chemically is polyethene, and that's made by the polymerization of ethene. So let's see how that works. This is an ethene molecule. I like to call it the char-char molecule. Now it takes 2 to tango, and that's why we've got 2 lines here. Think of this as 1 pair of electron, and this one as another pair of electron. This pair of electron acts as the man in the tango, and this one acts as the woman. Now the man, he's trying to get the woman, and he's going to hold on to her tightly. We call this type of bond a sigma bond. Now the woman, she can dance with anyone she wants. She's an absolute weldie, and she's in the club, and she's going to dance with loads of guys. Her bond's a lot looser, and we call that a pi bond. Now as she goes off dancing with loads of guys, we've got loads of sigma bonds forming, because the man, he holds on to the woman very tightly. And we get a long chain of these, and we call this molecule the char-char-char-char molecule, or polyethene. You see, polyethene's used everywhere, in plastic bags to the plastic on this cup here. When polymer chains are being made, sometimes stuff can spare off. We call this branching. The more branching, the less dense the polymer can be, given products like the plastic bag. However, the less branching there is, the more they can compact and be more dense, giving products like this here. So now we know the basics about polymers. We're going to have a look at some sports in detail. I'm going to start off by looking at golf. Alex, this is a Fiesta.
I'm sorry man, I'm poor.
Polymers can be found everywhere, not just in plastics, but they can also be found in things like golf balls. And we're here at Humberston Heights Golf Course to learn more about that. The properties of a polymer can change depending on what groups we have around our starting monomer. So before we were looking at ethene, we'll now be looking at 1,3-butadiene. Polybutadiene is a synthetic rubber and forms by linking many 1,3-butadiene monomers to make a much longer polymer chain molecule. Similar to ethene, right? Wrong. We've got some real funky stuff happening around 2 double bonds this time. 1,3-butadiene can polymerize in 3 different ways, called cis, trans, and vinyl. Now that's a little more complicated than we need to know, so let's dumb it down a little bit. This polymer is manufactured using the Ziegler-Natta catalysts. These let us obtain the isotactic and syn-diatactic polymers. First, let's call this bit an R group. Now we can say that isotactic polymers are where the R groups are on the same side of the fully extended carbon chain. They're isolated. Syn-diatactic polymers, however, are where the R groups regularly alternate on both sides of the carbon chain. They're right next to each other. What the catalysts don't obtain, however, is the atactic polymer. This is when the R groups are randomly orientated on both sides of the polymer chain. All these different versions will have different physical properties, and depending on what you want, you can have different catalysts and processes to obtain the different variants. Oh, it's a whole...
What? No, what the hell? Hey, do a dance, do a dance.
Do a dance?
Yeah.
Dab?
No, dance.
Most golf balls have a core of polybutadiene and it's surrounded by a layer of harder material. The polybutadiene inside the golf ball is preferred to other elastic isomers due to its high resilience. Now it's also a highly cross-linked polymer, and we'll talk about that a bit later on. Cross-linking is really simple. It's where one polymer chain is linked to another polymer chain by one molecule in between. The more of this action going on, the more elastic the polymer will become. Perfect for taking your energy and making it into a great shot.
Eren, we're not at pool.
Which brings us on to our next sport. We're here at Riley's Sports Bar to learn more about billiard balls and the polymers inside them. After some pretty heavy chemistry, it was time for a relaxing game of pool. Pool balls used to be made of ivory, but the elephants weren't really getting much out of this trade deal. So John Wesley Hyatt created billiard balls out of the polymer nitrocellulose. Little did he know, nitrocellulose is highly flammable and tended to explode on people when people did great shots, just like this. After Alex beat me 3 times in pool, it was time to go home, and the quickest way to go home, hardcore parkour.
Shoot that thing up, mommy, make it roll. Once you pop, pop, knock it for me, girl, get low. If your mama gave it to your baby girl, let it show. Once you pop, pop, knock it for me, baby, we can roll.
Now when I do parkour, I'm moving here, there, everywhere. And it's quite taxing on my legs, so I need them to breathe. That's why I like to use these special nylon shorts. Now nylon is polyamide, and that's just amides linked together repeatedly. Amides are formed by carboxylic acids and amines coming together in a condensation reaction, which is just a reaction where 2 things come together with the loss of a small molecule. Polyamides are formed by step growth polymerization, which is just multiple condensation reactions. It's the same mechanism throughout, and it grows from both ends of the monomer.
Ask you a question that you never heard. How do you make them dollars disappear like I feel like a better word? Let me introduce my friend, and that's you and Bow Wow. And I'm the pain better known as that.
Gotta go now one.
We've spoken about step growth polymerization, and now it's time to talk about another one called free radical polymerization, the other way of making a synthetic polymer. When I do parkour, it's quite hard on my hands, which is why I like to wear neoprene gloves. Neoprene is produced by free radical polymerization of chloroprene. Free radical polymerization is a type of chain polymerization. There are 3 steps. Initiation, where a reactive species is formed and attacks the first monomer, generating a reactive end group. Propagation, where the reactive end groups goes crazy and reacts further with monomers to give a long polymer chain. And finally, the termination step, which is where the reactive end group is deactivated and polymerization ends. This process differs slightly to step growth, as the growth occurs by the monomer adding to just one end of the chain. So in summary, we've learned a lot. We've learned that polymers are huge molecules which help us in our everyday lives, from day-to-day things to the stuff we enjoy, such as sport. We've learned that they can adopt different stereochemistries, which will give them different properties depending on what we want or need. And we've also had a look at the 2 ways of making synthetic polymers, chain polymerization and step growth polymerization, and the differences they have. Thanks for watching, kids, and remember, always leave them wanting polymorph. Alex, this is a